In the aftermath of the Industrial Revolution, capitalism emerged as economic powerhouses, propelling nations into unparalleled prosperity. This wasn't a localized phenomenon either. It was a tide that lifted all boats, leading to the rise of globalism, the ideology that promotes global cooperation, a grand web of interconnectedness that serves to improve the world through sharing of technology, trade, and transnational governance. But that isn't exactly how globalism has turned out. We are essentially seeing the truth of globalism spread and take mainstream hold as we speak. The once celebrated concept of globalism is now under siege. The world is witnessing a significant shift towards deglobalization, characterized by the resurgence of nationalist politics, protectionist policies, the disintegration of international trade agreements, and just a general skepticism towards multinational institutions. This reversal isn't just a political trend, it's a societal shift that reflects all of our concerns about the unequal distribution of globalism's benefits and the erosion of national identities. The rise of populist leaders who champion country-first agendas is a testament to this changing tide. And the unraveling of globalism isn't a benign event either. It will not come cheaply or freely. We're witnessing conflicts erupt, wars get larger and closer to home, and opinions everywhere are changing. Cheap products are the main tangible advantage of globalism, but even they are now at threat as we suddenly realize that buying kitchen utensils off the internet for $3 a piece is hardly worth the future of our countries. As we stand at this critical juncture, the implications are far-reaching. The end of globalism isn't just a theoretical concept, it's real and is changing everything for us right now. The shifts we're witnessing have the potential to redefine our understanding of sovereignty, community, and governance, setting the stage for a world that could be very different in just a few short years. But before delving into all these complexities and establishing why globalism is on the brink of collapse, it's crucial to understand what globalism truly means. It's not just a buzzword, it's a complex ideology that advocates for economic, political, and cultural interconnectedness among nations. It operates on a fairly simple principle that barriers, should they be from tariffs, borders, or regulations, should be minimized to facilitate the free flow of goods, services, and people. This ideology has been particularly embraced by international organizations like the UN, the World Trade Organization, and the International Monetary Fund, which aim to foster global cooperation and globalism as a whole, and of course, who could forget globalism's most wholehearted champion, the World Economic Forum? And at the heart of globalism is the concept of globalization, the process by which businesses and other organizations develop international influence or they start operating on an international scale. This has led to the creation of multinational corporations that have footprints in multiple countries and often almost every country in the world. For these corporations, globalism is not just an ideology, it's a business model, and it's essential to their survival and their bottom lines. By outsourcing labor to countries with lower production costs, they can maximize profits, and this really is what globalism's all about. This is where the global elites come into play. Wealthy business owners and shareholders benefit immensely from this system as they can leverage global labor markets to increase their wealth literally exponentially. And this is a luxury not afforded to the average citizen or business owner who lacks the means to outsource their daily grind to a more cost-effective location. Your mum and pop landlord aren't able to outsource the management of their duplex to India, but the real estate investment trust, which has 20,000 units, can do exactly that. And the elite enjoy the added advantage of liberalized trade policies, which allow them to shuffle capital across international borders with impunity, sidestepping the taxes and regulations that would otherwise gnaw at their profits, meaning they're taxed at far lower effective rates than normal people. While globalism claims to advocate for a borderless world where everyone is equal and wealth can be spread around, it paradoxically exacerbates economic inequalities. For the rank-and-file worker in a developed nation, the tentacles of globalism almost always manifest as job losses or stagnant wages, and really the gradual erosion of labor protections as corporations hunt for increasingly business-friendly climates. So globalism emerged as a Janus-faced entity on one flank. It holds the promise of a world more interconnected and collaborative than ever before. On the other side, it threatens to deepen socioeconomic chasms and foment societal discord. The global elite, armed with their unparalleled ability to navigate and manipulate the international system, are the primary beneficiaries of this complex system, often at the grievous expense of normal people. The current trajectory of globalism disproportionately elevates a select cadre of global power players, and it's absolutely unsustainable. And this is in essence where the good news comes into play, because despite what those elites likely desire, we do still live in democracies, and the average man who is trodden on by globalism has started to exercise their right to vote against it. And this effect erupted in 2022 with that one event that no one can deny is huge, the war in Ukraine. Globalism was once heralded as an anti-war machine that made it too difficult for wars between nations to be fought. But the war in Ukraine serves as a stark reminder that that just isn't true. The deployment of thousands of Russian troops toward Ukraine and the imposition of Western sanctions against Russia have led to an energy crisis that's destabilizing Europe's supply chains and causing energy markets to fluctuate, and it's all thanks to globalism. The situation has arisen largely due to the outsourcing of energy production. Western countries, in particular Germany, despite having abundant oil and gas reserves themselves, have opted for energy imports. This decision has rendered them incredibly vulnerable to geopolitical instabilities and the unpredictable actions of nations that don't align with their politics. The war in Ukraine isn't just a regional issue, it's a glaring testament to how globalism can jeopardize a country's security by making it reliant on other countries, even if it isn't directly involved in a war itself. And at the same time, we've been witnessing these trends in the two very apparent hegemonies of the world for a while now, the tiff between the United States and China. The geopolitical landscape is increasingly marred by escalating tensions between these nations, serving as a cautionary tale of the perils of globalism. From the intricate web of issues surrounding Taiwan to the politically charged visit of Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, the relationship between the two global hegemons is anything but harmonious. And we have Trump's trade war against China on top, the Chinese spy balloon incident, the Uyghur genocide, the microchip war, and that notorious virus that came from a certain place in a certain country that I'm not allowed to mention without getting myself banned on YouTube. China, often lauded as the workshop of the world, plays an obviously important role in supply chain, but this dependency is becoming increasingly fraught with risk given the escalating geopolitical tensions between East and West. Entrusting China with the supply of essential goods and components is literally playing with fire. If diplomatic relations deteriorate further, the ensuing disruption to supply chains could be nothing short of catastrophic for our economies. The current state of the world serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of global supply chains, especially when they're concentrated in geopolitically sensitive areas. Regardless of what you personally think about the Israel-Palestine conflict or the Houthis in the Red Sea or the war in Ukraine, you have to recognize that globalism is what makes these issues so important to average ordinary people in the West. These unfolding events make it abundantly clear that globalism in its current form is unsustainable and dangerous. Outsourcing production and relying on international supply chains may offer short-term economic benefits, but they come at the cost of long-term security and stability, and even economies as well. The time's come to rethink our approach to globalism, focusing on creating a more sustainable model. That doesn't mean abandoning international cooperation altogether, but simply recalibrating it to ensure that national interests and security are not compromised, and thankfully, this is exactly what is happening with our politics right now. Could anyone here imagine just a few years ago Democrats agreeing that energy security is important and that we shouldn't be outsourcing our guilt to the Saudis, or that secure borders are important as well? Anti-globalist politicians are being elected left, right and center in Argentina, Italy, the Netherlands, the States, and maybe even Canada soon enough. And whilst the unraveling of globalism may seem like a daunting prospect, the idea of having to pay a little bit more for our daily consumables is obviously not exactly nice. There is such a compelling argument to be made that this could be a very positive development. For decades, globalism has disproportionately served the interests of the billionaire and elite classes and multi-billion-dollar corporations at the expense of normal people. In the short term, some companies will see their profits fall, they will see their costs rise, and some of those costs will be passed on to consumers. But in the long term, our labor force won't be exported overseas, and we won't see 300% rises in commodity prices over the course of a week when the country we buy all our raw materials from suddenly decides they don't like our leaders' statements anymore. By bringing jobs back to the West and on local production, economies will become more resilient, less susceptible to external shocks as well. And this will not only create employment opportunities, but also stimulate economic growth. It will benefit our society as a whole. It's clear that the era of unchecked globalism is coming to an end and that we are witnessing its collapse in real time. And the decline of globalism isn't a catastrophe but a wake-up call urging us to reassess and recalibrate our approach to international relations and economic development. The path forward isn't entirely clear, but it is bright and the signs are showing us to be moving in absolutely the right direction.